The moment I said it out loud, "I'm gay," something shifted inside me. It wasn't loud, no fireworks, no applause, just a silence that, for the first time in my life, felt peaceful, like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. For so long, I had carried that truth like a secret disease. I thought it would consume me if I let it out. But when I stopped fighting it, when I just let it be, I realized something extraordinary. I was still here, I was still me, and I didn't feel broken. I felt still. At 27, I didn't rush out of the closet waving a rainbow flag. There was no dramatic proclamation. It was quieter than that, more sacred. I simply stopped pretending. I stopped forcing myself to want what I didn't want. I stopped begging God to make me someone I was never designed to be. But with that peace came new questions. If I wasn't who I had spent years pretending to be, then who was I? I had no roadmap. Just curiosity, instinct, a little courage, and a lot of fear still echoing in the background. So I decided to explore. I wanted to go to a gay bar, but I was terrified. What if someone saw me? What if I didn't belong there either? I reached out to a couple of friends. I knew they were gay. I asked them if they could take me. They smiled and said, "Of course." That night, we walked into a place I had never dared enter before. Lights, music, laughter, movement, a whole world unfolding behind a door I'd never dared open. It was beautiful, it was terrifying, and yet it was mine. I stood on the edge of the dance floor when a guy came up to me and asked if I wanted to dance. I froze. I knew how to dance. I've always loved to move. But this was different. This wasn't just dancing. This was being seen, touching, holding, being held. We danced. I was stiff. I laughed nervously, but eventually I let go. Just a little. And I smiled, because in that awkward two-step, I saw something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. But I couldn't silence the voices in my head, the ones that told me I was burning in hell for what I was doing. That fear hadn't vanished. It clung to me like smoke. But even in that haze, I could feel something stronger, something rising, a new version of me. Even at home, things began to shift. My apartment, once a shrine to a future I no longer believed in, floral curtains, a guest room for the kids, kitchenware picked for some imagined wife, now needed a redesign, not because a man needs different plates, but because I needed to walk into a space that reflected me. I rearranged, I painted, I removed the photos that weren't telling my story anymore. I made room for the life I hadn't yet lived. There were stumbles, awkward moments, encounters that felt rushed or confusing. I was learning to walk again, emotionally speaking, but something had changed. My mind and my body were no longer at war. They were finally speaking the same language, and that gave me strength. I began to see my past differently. I didn't hate my faith. I still loved parts of it, its rituals, its reverence, its moral compass. But I could now see which parts were rooted in love and which were rooted in fear. I could name the verses that held me and the ones that shackled me. This journey wasn't about destroying the house I was raised in. It was about rebuilding it, brick by brick, with my own hands. But the hardest part? Letting go of the life I had so carefully planned. I had a blueprint, a woman, kids, a house, a respectable job. But I knew even if I built that life perfectly, I'd be building it hollow, safe, respected, applauded, but not me. So I made the scariest decision of my life. I gave myself permission to start again. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know if I'd find love. I didn't know if I'd be accepted, but I knew deep in my bones I couldn't keep living someone else's dream. And that right there was the beginning of the man I am today. Not the day I realized I was gay, not the day I said it out loud, but the day I chose to begin again. The day I said yes to the unknown. That was the day I started building a life I didn't have to run from.